Hello, in this video we're going to talk about charging LiPo batteries. As we saw in one of the earlier videos, LiPo batteries are a pretty fussy type of battery to charge, and they need to be treated just right so that we don't damage them or minimize their lifespan or make them start smoking or burning or something bad like that. So you'll need a special type of battery charger, and it'll need these balance ports on there. I think we looked at this already, didn't we? But this is the one that I got a few years ago, and I used this for quite a while until recently. I got a larger one that can handle more power and more current and charge more batteries at the same time, but I still use this one occasionally. This one requires a DC input voltage of 11 to 18 volts, and to get that I've been using this laptop power adapter which plugs in there. And when you plug it in, let me just go back a bit. I think when you first plug it in, you'll see something like this. And we can use the button on the left to cycle through the different types of batteries that this charger can handle, and they're mentioned on the left side of it there. So 1 to 6 cell LiPo is what we are interested in. So to cycle between them, you hit battery type. So we can also do nickel metal hydride batteries, NiCad batteries, lead acid batteries, and then there's a couple of other things here. I don't really know what these are. But anyway, so once we're on LiPo battery, we'll do enter. And then I have it set here to charge at 0.8 amps, and for a 2-cell battery, so 7.4 volts nominal voltage battery. Now you cannot just select whatever kind of current and voltage you want on here, because this voltage, not sure that it's written anywhere, but this one is a 50 watt charger, and watts are a measurement of power, and for electrical power the power is calculated by the current, or the amps, multiplied by the voltage. So whatever two numbers we have on here, we multiply them together, and they cannot be more than 50. And to keep it safe, I'd keep it under 45, say, just to make sure you're not exceeding the power rating of this charger. Another thing to keep in mind is that it's not actually the numbers that we see on here. For example, 7.4 is the nominal voltage, or the middle of the range voltage for each cell. So for LiPos, as we saw earlier, 4.2 volts is how far we're going to charge them up. So a 2-cell LiPo is actually going to go up to 8.4 volts total. So just got to keep that in mind too, and multiply this number by, I guess it's, so you're going to multiply that number by how many cells you've got, multiplied by 4.2. So it's going to be 0.8 multiplied by 8.4 for this particular setting. So whatever we get from that multiplication cannot exceed 50 for this charger. That's the power rating. Another thing to keep in mind is this limit over here. So charge rate, the maximum current that we can use is 5 amps. So this is, no matter what voltage you're using, you cannot exceed 5 amps, or 5, this number here cannot exceed 5. So there's just those two limitations you have to keep in mind. It's a pretty low spec charger, but it's very cheap, and it's good for charging 1 or 2 batteries, maybe 3 if they're small. You can charge those using a parallel charging board, which we'll have a look at a little bit later on. But anyway, let's keep going with the settings. So if we hit start here, you'll see that the current number starts flashing, and then we can use these decrement and increment numbers to change the current. So let's say we want to charge, I have this battery which is a 1.3 amp hour 3-cell. So if I wanted to charge this, I would put this to 1.3. Now this 1.3, it's not quite as simple as just matching up the number that's written on the battery. It says 1.3 under the sticker. But the typical charging rate for LiPo battery is 1C. So this is where those C ratings that we saw in one of those earlier videos come back to haunt us. But simplest way to think about it is matching up that number. but what I'm doing is charging this battery at 1C. So anyway, 1.3 amps, and now we're changing the number of cells, and I want to make it 3 cells for this battery. And so that would be good enough for this one. And then I would plug it in with a plug like this, and the other end is going into my XT60 connector on the battery. And the safest way to do this is to plug this end in first, and you can of course do it like this, but this is not such a great idea, because as soon as you plug this in, you have to keep in mind that these two terminals are now live and they cannot be bumped together, otherwise you'll get some sparks or something going on over that end. So don't do it that way. You probably won't need to anyway. Most of the time you'll just have this pretty much permanently plugged into your charger. So let's plug this in, and then at this port here we have 2 cells, 3 cells, 4 cells and so on, and they match up with these balance lead connectors inside there. So I'm going to put this, make sure you get this the right way around. You can see the little tabs on the plug, and then there's little notches on the socket, so you just got to get that the right way around. And then to start it charging, you just hold down the start button for 1 second or 2 seconds, and then it will just check to see that what you're telling it to do makes sense with what it's reading from the number of cells on there. So it's saying, and that actually disappears if you don't do anything for a few seconds, so I have to do that again. So it's saying, I think it means it read 3 cells and you set 3 cells, so they match up, and then you can do stopped again. Hold on. So if they match up, then you just do start again. So now we're charging, and while it's charging it will show you what it's doing. So we have Lipo 3 cells, and the current is 1.4 amps. It's a little bit much, isn't it? 1.2. Should be 1.3. That's better. And the current voltage is 11.2 for the whole battery. And the process that it's doing is charging. We'll have a look at some other process types after this. This is the time that it's been running, and this is the number of milliamp hours that it has pushed into that battery so far. So this is the status that you'll see while it's charging. And one other status you can see, if we push the increment button, now we can look at this menu to see the individual cell voltages for each cell. So 3.7, so they're almost matching up, and these will gradually go up to 4.2 volts per cell. So I think this just cycles between those two settings. And this one, oh, this is telling us it's going to finish at 12.6 volts. Safety timer is 480 minutes, so if something goes wrong and it never reaches the 4.2 volts, it will, at worst case, it will never go more than 480 minutes. What else have we got? Oh, that's interesting. You can also set a capacity as well. I must have set this to that for some reason, so that's quite a small number. But you can put these, make these settings in one of those other menus. And this is showing me the input power of this laptop battery adapter that I'm using. Where is it? These things disappear so quickly. So it must be a 12 volt adapter there. And then it disappears. Okay. So at any time you can stop that. It'll make some beeps when it finishes. So on this menu, if we use the decrement and increment buttons, we can choose from different types of charging. So this one here, charge, this means it's just going to push current into the battery. That's current that we set there, and it's not really going to bother trying to make sure that all the cells are the same as each other. It's just going to keep going until either it gets to 12.6 volts overall, or I think until one of the cells reaches 4.2 volts, and then it has to stop because it can't raise the voltage of a cell more than that. Next one is balance, and it looks like I have individual profiles set up for different batteries on here. But balance will make sure that while it's charging, the individual cell voltages will all keep the same as each other. So if you could imagine like all the cells are racing to get to the top, this balance mode will make sure that none of them can really get ahead of the other cells, and they will progress at the same rate. Usually this is what I use all the time pretty much. It's you don't need to do it as long as the cells are reasonably balanced when you start. There's not too much of an advantage to this one, and it can slow things down because it's kind of, whenever one cell starts to get ahead too much, it just sort of stops charging that one and lets the other ones catch up, so it can take a bit more time. What else have we got? Fast charge, not really sure what that one is. Storage, yes. So after you've charged your batteries up, you shouldn't leave them charged for too long, and I think after a few days is the point where you should really think about doing something with them, like either using them, flying your quadcopter, or discharging them. You can use this to discharge them, and just make sure that they're not sitting around with a full charge for too long, because that can damage them. So you can use the storage mode to bring them down to the right level to keep them for long-term storage. So that'll be the middle of the range voltage. And then discharge, if you want to actually discharge them down further than the storage voltage, you can use this mode. I typically don't use that because I usually discharge them in my quadcopter. By the way, if we calculate the power requirements of this case here for this 1.3 amp hour 3-cell battery, we would multiply the current by the voltage, or the final voltage is going to be 12.6 when it's fully charged, and that gives us about 16 watts. So this charger is actually capable of pushing more power into this battery, but we only want to charge it at 1C, so we don't want to exceed 1.3. If you were in a real hurry, maybe you could do a little bit faster, but I wouldn't do it very often. In fact, I wouldn't do it at all. Just keep it to 1C to be safe. So for a larger battery like this, maybe we could actually make use of the little bit extra power available in the charger. So to charge this at let's see, this is also 12.6 volts fully charged. So this is a 3S 5.2 amp hour battery multiplied by 5.2 amps if we wanted to charge this at 1C. This is, if we charge this battery at 1C, we would be using 65 watts. So we couldn't charge this battery as fast as the battery can handle it. The limiting factor is going to be the charger for this one. So to figure out what current we could use, we take 50 watts and we divide it by the voltage, because we have no control over what the voltage is going to be. That's a fixed value because it's just this battery is a 3S battery, so it's going to be 12.6 volts when it's done. So 50 divided by 12.6 will give us the current that we can use. So it's about 4 amps maximum, and to be safe I would make it a little bit lower than that, so maybe 3.5 or so is the most you could use with this particular charger, which is only capable of 50 watts. So charging a battery at 1C, if you remember from one of those previous videos, the 1C rating is the current that this battery could sustain for 1 hour. And what that kind of means is that it's going to take 1 hour to charge, pretty much. But if you are starting from storage level, it'll be less than that, maybe 35 to 40 minutes or so. So with the low power charger like this to charge lots of batteries one after another would take quite a long time. So say if you had 3, 4, 5, 6 batteries like this, you're looking at 40 minutes each to charge them, which can be a bit of a nuisance. So one thing you can do is use one of these balance parallel charging boards, I think they're called, and this lets you charge, in this case this one can handle 6 batteries at a time, and typically you're going to need a bit more of a powerful charger than this one to really make use of something like this, but it can still be useful to let you go away and do something instead of having to come back all the time and switch over your batteries every 40 minutes to keep them charging. You can just sort of set them all up in one batch and have them, you don't have to keep changing it basically. So let's have a look at how this works. Basically all of these plugs are just connected in parallel. So this point is connected to this point and all of those points along there. This one is connected to all of those. All of these pins in here, so the bottom one is connected to that bottom one, and all of the bottom ones all the way along are connected to each other, and likewise for all of those rows. And then they're all just brought out here into the pins inside there, and these 2 points here are going to be same as that point there and that point there. It's all just connected together. So this is quite convenient because it means that you can charge more than one battery at the same time by connecting them together in parallel. But this is where you have to be really, really careful. This can cause a lot of trouble if you don't get it right. So if you're not confident in how this works, it's probably best not to do it. But it does save a lot of time, so I'll go over how it can be done. First thing that is the most important is that you can only charge batteries that are the same voltage, the same cell number. So for example, this one here, this is a 4-cell, not marked very well, but it's a 4-cell battery, and this one is a 3-cell battery. You can sort of see different batteries. But if we were to plug these in together like that, what we're doing is we're connecting about 16 volts to about 12 volts, and with no resistance in between them, that's just going to cause heaps of current to flow from the 4-cell battery into the 3-cell battery quite fast, and these wires are all going to get hot, and you'll hear a sizzling sound, and these little plugs will start to melt. I know this because my friend told me. I read it on the internet. Yeah, I read it on the internet. That's how I know that. So do not do that. That's bad. But what we can do is charge 2 batteries that are the same voltage. So these are 2 3-cell batteries, different capacities, as you can see there, and here. So this is a 1.3 amp hour, and this is a 1 amp hour battery. Now we can charge these together. So can we just plug them straight in? No. We have to make sure that when we plug them in, they're both starting from the same voltage, or approximately the same voltage. So the best way to do this is to get one of these battery voltage checkers. This is one that I made myself, but I'll give you a link to where you can buy something like this. And this is very, very handy because we can just plug this into the parallel, the battery plug on the Lipo, and it will tell us the voltage of each of the cells. So around about 3.7 volts per cell for this battery, and this other battery that we were considering charging together with it is 3.8 volts per cell approximately. So that's a little bit too different to be connecting directly to each other. So there's going to be 0.1 volts difference per cell and almost no resistance between them because they're just connected directly to each other. There's no resistors in between. So that current is going to start flowing from the higher voltage to the lower voltage. And I think, no, you can't really get away with this much voltage difference. Typically, I don't actually know what is the safe value, but I've been avoiding charging batteries that were more than about 0.02 volts apart. So for this one being 3.79, I would go up to maybe 3.82 at the most, or something like that. So if the other battery was, say, 3.76-ish to 3.82, maybe I would consider it to be safe to put together with this one. But any more than that difference, you don't want to put them together. So unfortunately, I cannot charge these two in parallel together. But I have this other one, which I'm pretty sure is also, so it's 3.8 approximately. And this one I'm pretty sure was the same. Yeah, exactly. So that's great. So these two batteries I can charge in parallel. And the reason that they're both the same is because last time after I finished using them, I put them in the battery charger one by one to bring them up to storage charge. And I don't mind doing them one by one like that after I finish flying, because usually I come home and it's, the day is over and it's, for whatever reason, I'm not flying anymore, so I don't mind that it takes a long time to put them back to storage charge one by one. But I do like to have it so that I can charge them up quickly all together when I want to go out somewhere. So anyway, these are both 3-cell batteries, and they're both starting at the same voltage per cell at the beginning of the charge. So these ones we can use to do parallel charging with. So I can now plug these in, but again, watch out for this, because as soon as you plug them in there, these two terminals are going to be live. And my friend told me about, you can get sparks when you do that too. My friend tells me about lots of dumb things he did. So plug that in there. And then this is going to go into, well, we've got enough for 6 cells on there, so this has got to go into the 6-cell one. And then we can plug these in. And if you get this wrong, again, you will hear a sizzling sound and smell a funny smell, and one of these plugs will start to melt. But nothing's going to happen here because I'm a pro and I'm getting everything correct. So we go, what are we doing here? Lipo battery, Lipo. Okay, so 3-cell is the same. So the question now is, what current are we able to use to charge these two together? So if we were just charging one, we would want to make it 1 amp, because that would be the 1C rating for the battery. But what we're doing here is we're pushing the current in, so the current's going to come in these wires, and then the current has 2 places to go, so it can come in here and go through there and back, and then out again. So it's being split up. So whatever current we tell the charger to push out, only half of it is going to go into each of these. So if they can both take 1 amp each, we can tell a charger to push 2 amps out, and they will each get 1 amp, and we should still be safe. So by doing that, we'll be able to charge these both in the same time. And just making sure that we are keeping within the power rating of the charger. So this is 12.6 volts multiplied by 2 amps. Yeah, I know it's easy, but just to show you. So 25 watts of power. That's fine. We could probably charge a third one of these batteries, actually. Yeah, you could do. This charger would be able to handle 3 of these batteries together. Now, there is a little bit more to it, and generally what I do when I'm parallel charging is I take that value that I just calculated, so it will be 2 amps. So I would set this up like... So that would be okay, I think. But the thing about batteries is, especially when you have some that are older than others, these two I bought at the same time, and I've used them about the same, I've given them the same use and treatment, so they're probably in the same condition. So for these 2 batteries, I would probably just go ahead and charge it as I just showed you, set up there, 2 amps. But if you're charging other batteries that are not in the same kind of condition. Some of them can accept charge quicker than others, and some of them are a bit tougher and fresher, so they'll be slower. So what you really should do, or what I think you should do anyway, is just back off on that current number a little bit to make sure that the slowest charging one is going to be supported. So probably what I would do is go back a little bit from this and make it say 1.8 amps, so that we're only going to have 900 milliamps or 0.9 amps going through each one, just to keep it all on the safe side. This also applies for if the size of the batteries is different. So let's say, for example, that this 1.3 amp hour battery was, all the cells were at the same voltage level as these two, so I could put it in there together. So let's say I had plugged that in and we're going to charge all of these three together. When you're doing that, you should set your current value to accommodate the lowest or the smallest sized battery. So even though this one can handle more than 1 amp, I would make my setting to handle just 1 amp. So for this setting, the lowest current battery, or the lowest capacity battery, is 1. So it's just going to be 1, 1, 1, and then I would take that as 3 amps and then back off a little bit to maybe 2.6 amps. And 2.6 amps should still be safe. 6 divided by 2.6. 32. Yeah, that's fine. By the way, these parallel charging boards, well, this one at least, they have a couple of plugs or sets of plugs here so that you can plug these plugs from that end into a second parallel board, and you can daisy chain them together in this one as well. Of course, we'll go into that plug on the second one, and you can just keep extending on with more and more parallel charging boards so that you can charge lots and lots of batteries all at the same time, provided that you have a high power enough battery charger to handle it, of course. So it's really cool. I use 2 of these parallel boards, and that lets me charge 12 of these 4S batteries in just 40 minutes. I can be up and running, provided that I have them all at storage charge, ready to go, of course. So I think that's about all that needs to be said on this subject. Perhaps wasn't not the most succinct of explanations, but if you're feeling a little bit confused still, there are actually quite a few other videos that I've seen on YouTube explaining exactly this topic already, so I might put a link to 1 or 2 of those in the description. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.